Hey everybody, it's Flake. I've got another top 5 list for you. And based on the other one, I figured, you know what, let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the past. And Gwent has had a little bit of a turbulent journey from its first renditions early on, several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, to what it is today. I mean, we all know the whole Homecoming, I don't want to call it a fiasco, but resurgence, and the midwinter update that really just sort of put a dagger in the heart of a game that had had a pretty firm foothold for a while, but eventually a lot of it kind of just fell through its fingers. Nonetheless, here are 5 things from beta that we're pretty happy are now gone. Now, number 5 is going to be the fact that back in old beta Gwent, there were no stratagems. The coin flip was very much a little bit of a problem. And, well, frankly, the going second, having that red coin abuse on your side was very, very helpful in winning a lot of games. It really was a determining factor of whether you were going to win a game or not. The blue coin of death was very dangerous, and some people like Trinet, who became the quote-unquote blue coin kid, was because they basically were able to go through that gauntlet in a tournament setting of 5 or 6 or 7 blue coins in a row and still win a tournament, which is fascinating in itself and very, very it's a great testament to Trinet's skill. Trinet's an awesome human being whom I met way back when in Philadelphia, and honest to God, being able to survive blue coin back in the day is it's something to be said about your skill level. So the fact that there's no stratagems back then, where it's good that there is now a way, multiple ways even, for you to get an upper hand when you're on blue coin to help you out. So we are glad that stratagems are here, and dear God, let's keep them here. Number 4 is the fact that there is gold immunity back in the day, that gold cards were basically immune to most elements of damage. You couldn't target them with anything. You couldn't really do anything to them unless you had some type of AoE effect or a card that specifically dealt with a gold card. Gold cards were immune to damage. But let that sort of wrap up around your head. Scorch wouldn't touch them, I don't think, and other cards really couldn't really do much to a gold unit. So if you had gold units, you're pretty much safe with those points. Stacking up those cards real high and helping them out was a part of the basic strategies. Decks like Spellitel or Francesca triple scorch kind of things were really, really rampant, and basically you hit all your points protected within this golden frame that was impenetrable by most units. There were some cards that dealt with it. Cards like Dimeridium Bomb actually was a way to demote Shackles, rather, or Dimerium Shackles was a way to demote a card from gold to silver, which was ridiculous in itself, but it factored in because it allowed you to go ahead and actually be able to interact with the card. But gold immunity was something that really limited the interactivity of decks and really leaned decks towards just focusing and rallying around these massive impact 4 cards. So gold immunity, we're glad that's gone. The other one is weather. Weather affects lasting forever and being able to basically just completely negate an entire row of points. Now, there were 2 elements as to how weather was problematic. The first one was basically in its earliest renditions and phases was the fact that if you put weather on a row, it was going to negate all the points. It basically turned all the points on a row. All the units became 1-point units. And as ridiculous as it sounds, that's how it worked. Now, there were cards that were immune to weather conditions, which means that even if they were sitting in weather, they were not going to have their strengths modified by that weather effect, but that was few and far between, which became the whole thing of the whole Dagon Hooplinks first meta, where if you have Last Say with Dagon, you either clear the weather that they're dropping on you or you drop weather on their strongest row, and typically you win. But the fact that that weather has kind of evolved from this just shut down an entire row forever until it's removed to the point of being an infinite amount of length. So if you put fog on a row, the fog's going to stay there until the fog is basically removed by a card on your own side. So it became this kind of he said, she said type of situation within Gwent where either everyone's running weather and therefore everybody's got to run weather clears, and nobody's going to run weather. They're in that people are going to take out weather clears, so people are going to start playing weather again. It's just kind of the way that went. And the fact that weather now has a timer on it and has a specific value of damage that a specific amount of damage that it'll do to the highest, the lowest, or a pair of units is very important, I feel, in terms of where this game has evolved to. Weather as it was in its first earliest renditions to the version we see now, but with no time limit on it. I'm thinking that the way that weather is now is fine, and it's only getting better. And I'm glad that whole shutdown weather thing is long gone. All right, number 2 is Silver Spies. And Silver Spies is a way of saying card advantage spies. Cards that you would play on your opponent's side that were typically worth a lot of points. At the time, they were like between 10 and 12 points. They were 13 points, and they each had a unique effect in terms of what they did. The old school Frightener used to be a 12-point spy, I believe, that would move a unit to the row that it's on, but it would also draw you a card. So it basically became a situation where if you won round 1, you'd go into round 2 bleeding them while playing your Silver Spy to maintain that card advantage. You'd play the Silver Spy in a round that did matter to you by donating them 10 to 15 points or whatnot, but it would draw you a card. So you'd get that disadvantage, but the card would come back and you'd be able to bleed out important units from your opponent's deck. Now, if you didn't have that Silver Spy, then you'd usually dry pass and go from there. However, it became a situation where if you had that Silver Spy, you basically had an advantage in terms of that round 2, which made round 1 impressively important because you wanted to go into round 2 winning so that you can play that Silver Spy to draw your card and to force units out of your opponent's deck. It was a no penalty bleed situation. Now, the way that you see it now, round 2 has become an art form in itself, and players have realized that how to bleed or defend a bleed in round 2 is incredibly important. And the elimination of Silver Spies has really put consequences on what round 2 means in any particular matchup. It's not like you have the safety net of dropping a Silver Spy on your opponent's side of the board, draw a card, and there's no penalty. You'll always have card advantage. You'll always have last say, even if you lose that round fairly heftily. Now, that said, it's called Silver Spies because back in the day there used to be 4 gold spots, 6 silver spots, and however many bronze slots for cards. And the fact remains now that there is no silver cards, and Silver Spies, those card draw spies, were silver, and we're glad that they are no longer a thing. Now, finally, at number 1 is going to be something that a lot of people didn't realize actually existed for a while. It's passive abilities. Oh, yes, every faction had a passive ability. Now, it had a leader ability, like we all know them now, be it imprisonment or, reckless flurry, or, I don't know, nature's gift or whatever. I mean, every faction has its own abilities, but it used to have a passive ability, an ability that was online for your faction that was only exclusive to that particular faction. And some of these got really ridiculous. Now, if you can sort of go ahead and think in your mind as to what they were, if you're way back when in the closed beta, you might think as to, okay, what were those actual abilities? I'll give you a quick second to think about them. Yeah, they're ridiculous, but let's go through them real quick. Now, Nilfgaard's passive ability used to be that it was the only faction that allowed mulligans between rounds. Now, you draw cards between rounds, but only Nilfgaard was allowed to actually mulligan cards. Crazy, right? Yeah. Now, Scoia'tael was the faction that allowed you to choose whether you wanted to go first or second in a round. Think about that. Think about the importance of going first and the importance of going second in a particular round, the red coin, blue coin thing. With Scoia'tael, you were pretty much guaranteed, if you went into round 3 on even cards, that you had last say. You just go ahead. You might have won round 2, but if you want to go second, you just say, all right, well, I'm going to use my passive ability and choose in this round to go second. That is an actual passive ability. Now, Northern Realms had an ability where the gold cards that you play were boosted by 2, so you got a little bit of a boost in that regard. Let's see. There was the passive ability of Skellige, which was basically every single every card that you play gets strengthened by 1 on round turn. So you know how Veteran works, where everything at the end of a round gets strengthened by 1? Every card got strengthened by 1 if you're Skellige. So that was their passive ability. So Skellige got stronger and stronger as the game went on. And finally, monsters might be the most ridiculous one. We see how resilience and carryover has such massive implications in Gwent. Well, monsters had that built in to whatever the hell they're doing. Now, what monsters had, their passive ability was that the last card that you play from hand at the end of the round, when the round ends, becomes resilient. And so think about it this way. If you're consuming a unit to unit to unit to unit, and you've got this massive 30-point unit, if you consume that 30-point unit with a 5-point unit, that 35-point unit, at the end of the round, gets carried over to round 2. And it kept its buffs. That's the other thing. It kept its buffs. Eventually, they changed that as well, but the units did not reset when the round changed. It was basically a situation where if you consumed a 30-point unit, you go into the next round with that 30-point unit already on your board. And it's also worth noting, Death Wish, yeah, that would trigger on round end, and whatever would pop out of those Death Wish units would carry over to the next round as well. So we're kind of glad that passives are gone, and the kind of Death Wish trigger thing too, but we're going to slide that in. All right, well, that's the list, ladies and gentlemen. 5 things that we're kind of glad don't exist from beta through to homecoming and where we are now with Gwent. Or is there something you might have think that I missed here? Is there something that you're absolutely just super happy doesn't exist anymore? Go ahead, drop it in the comments. And as always, you can catch me on Twitch, twitch.tv/WatchFlake, on Twitter as well, at WatchFlake. You can go ahead and follow me there. Drop me your ideas for future videos and such. Don't forget, be kind to one another. Flake loves you. I got your back. I'll catch you soon.